What is going on, Lucid fans? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to give you a good overview of this week's expectations as far as what might be moving the stock price and potentially where it might end at the end of the week as far as our price action. Before I get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. Without further ado, let's get right to it. So it did close on Friday, 8.04, up 5.51%. This upcoming week, as far as data points, there is two things coming out, one of which is on Wednesday, and that is non-farm employment. And on Friday, there is non-farm payroll. And both are forecast to be a little bit lower than the previous data. So of course, that might not necessarily be the best start to going into it, but generally speaking, both of those data points are very much linked to consumers. And you guys already know my stance on that. For the most part, they've been doing their job out there and holding and being the strong pillars of the economy. So I think in general, that might be a very good, exciting thing. And going into next week, Jim Cramer actually did acknowledge Lucid. So he did say if they could only figure out how not to lose money. So the fact that he's clearly bearish on Lucid is a very, very positive thing. That's probably the best news for Lucid over the last couple weeks. So in general, that might alone cause Lucid to go to all-time highs. So in reality, that is what it is. But more specifically, a lot of people have been getting this through the email. So get pulled in. Stay up to date on the latest Gravity news like upcoming battery and powertrain variants and be among the first to find out when you can experience it in person. Reservations begin spring of 2023. So it is coming very, very soon. And typically what has happened in the past when they've sent a lot of these like info email kind of components like this, typically the news does come out within 2 weeks. So it is fair to assume that the Gravity launch is going to be fully done in 2 weeks' time. So of course, I think that will be an absolute huge catalyst for Lucid behind the scenes. And just looking at that, of course, we've not really seen a true prototype that's been really introduced by Lucid, but clearly, I think this is where the market wants, and the market's been really wanting an SUV from Lucid for a while now. And based on this, it does show around an estimation of $90,000 for the Gravity. So if it is truly $90,000, I see that as a massive catalyst as well. Because as I've said in the past, the price of the Gravity is going to be either whether it makes it or breaks it. Because for instance, if it's at $200,000 for some random reason, nobody's going to buy it, even though in theory it's a very nice vehicle. Same thing goes for the Air Grand Touring. In theory, it's a very good vehicle, very powerful, but the price point doesn't really justify it. No different than the Gravity. If it's $200,000, probably won't really be that big of a success. Versus anything lower than 120, in my opinion, who isn't a financial advisor, I see that as a very positive sign. So you can use that kind of as a benchmark. So if it comes out at 140, for instance, then maybe the market might not necessarily like that, of course. But like I said, I could be very much wrong about that. Going into next week, though, I do see a little bit more of a battle because over the last week per se, shorts on a broad stance, because keep in mind there is a lot of the similar kind of institutions that are shorting. So the institutions that are shorting Lucid are out there shorting, for instance, AMC and many other stocks as well. And for the most part, last week they kind of lost a lot of money during the tail end at least. So this week I do anticipate them to really try to double down, especially going back over here. These data points are very much negative. Anticipate a lot of volatility. And currently short score is 85, utilization is 100%. And what shorts did on Friday, they increased 85,000 shares, which isn't that much in reality, because there's currently 146.21 million shares being shorted, and that works out to be 22.81% of the free float. Cost to borrow is going down a little bit, so it's currently at 14.05. Once again, you do see that broker out there very much incentivizing shorting with Lucid because they are only charging 0.35%. So definitely, I don't know who that is. I think based on emails and people have informed me, I think it is Fidelity, but of course can't really validate that. So in general, I think they are going to bring a very big battle because like I said, even more so looking on the technical stance, things are looking a lot more optimistic than what they have been. So on Friday, it did have a nice little rally up to 820, but like I've mentioned in the past, 820 is a very big pivot point. Assuming there is a nice continuation of momentum, even with or without any Gravity news, I personally feel how it is right now, it can easily get over that. Whether it has enough to get over $10, I don't think so right now at this stage in the game, but most likely it can definitely run up to around at least the 860 range, potentially might be pushing it to 9. Of course, if there's enough momentum and good data coming out, could very much be done. But right now, as you can see right here, so it is currently sitting right on top of that central boiling band. So right above that, they also have that 820, so the S1. So assuming it can get over those, then it can easily trend up in this range. But like I said, and what I continue to say, there has been a nice good amount of calls being purchased, but especially Friday was an abnormal day. There was a lot more puts. So I think behind the scenes, there's someone very much betting against Lucid. Again, I'm not really sure. On a side note, I did do a intro video for as far as options. I did unfortunately put it as a Mullen video. I just incorporated it in that, but I did very much use Lucid as a very ongoing example. So make sure you guys pop over to my channel and you guys can see the actual video itself. And for the most part, I go over everything for an intro basis. So make sure you guys pop over there and take a look and let me know you guys' thoughts on that, because options can be very much beneficial and profitable at this stage in the game. Even more so just looking at, for instance, just putting that in perspective. So Lucid, if you guys do believe in Lucid long term, for instance, January 17th, 2025, as far as an option, if you are, for instance, believing in Lucid long term, you could potentially buy even better yet, a $10 call option for $255. So in reality, that's very, very good. So it'd make your average or your break even point at least $12.55. So in reality, I think that can be very much easily done by 2025, but again, I could be very much wrong. So no matter what, let me know your thoughts on that. As far as what I've been noticing over the last couple of days, there's been a lot more institutions getting into Lucid. So once again, if you are one of those retail investors that likes to follow the money or what big money is doing, they are buying Lucid. And like I've said in the past, I kind of find this flawed, this whole system, because typically what does happen, institutions typically do buy the dip, and because based on the technicals and various other things, things are looking bullish. So institutions buy. 2 weeks from now, what they do, they say, oh, we bought Lucid, or they either up their actual ratings on Lucid. So they buy first, then they announce it. And it's very flawed, because then that causes a little bit more of a false rally, because a lot more retail investors see that, hey, look, JP Morgan is saying that Lucid is a buy. I'm going to go buy it now. But they buy it around these very heavy resistance points. And then from there, it just goes down. And then a lot of retail investors just get screwed in the end. So of course, just follow big money. There has and is some positives to that and negatives. So make sure you guys do your own due diligence, like I said. But given the circumstances, I do see most likely over the next 2 weeks, the gravity to be coming out fairly soon. And I think that will be the next big catalyst. And of course, just following Bear's workshop and seeing the progress of the peer. And over and above that, though, I do believe that Lucid did post about the stealth. So it does look like they've started to have their first deliveries with the stealth look. So definitely, I think that's going to be an exciting thing. And even in that regard, there was a lot of good optimism around this. So the stealth look, the peer, and the gravity are going to be big things for at least the foreseeable future, at least in the short term. But no matter what, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments below. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And let me know in the comments, where do you see Lucid going in the short term? Do you get maybe $10? Do you think it's going to go down and retrace back into around this $7 range potentially? Because given the fib levels, it could be range bound between that 704 and 820, on which basically it has been doing over the last week or so. So it might continue to do that potentially until either Wednesday or Friday, one of these big economic data points, or potentially just something else might come out of left field. Don't know, right? So let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments below. If you do like my Lucid content, want to support the channel, take a look at my memberships, link in the description below, or just hit the join button at the bottom of the screen. With that said, appreciate you guys watching. Let's all make a lot of money on Lucid.